on, and this meeting is being recorded. If anyone has a question they would like to record, I'd be happy to try and answer it. I'm just kidding. If anyone has a question, I'd be happy to try and answer.
Stuart?
Yes.
Can you please speak to fear and doubt and how it relates to the choices and decisions that we make in our life?
Yeah, I mean, look, fear, let's start with fear, okay? Fear is not necessarily an unhealthy thing. It's not the fear that's unhealthy. The fear is just telling us, and I talk about this a lot, that just to be more conscious in a situation, to really understand what we're involved with, who we're involved with, to be more conscious about, many things, whatever it happens to be, whether it's a relationship or money, or the fear is not the problem. The problem is we're so conditioned to bring our mind into the fear that we create. I always compare it to a buoy that's telling you in a fog that there's a rock there and you have to navigate the ship consciously. And so what happens is the mind gets involved, and the mind creates out of this buoy that is wanting you to be more conscious in a situation into something that becomes Frankenstein, becomes a monster. So it builds it up into this creature that really takes over, we have to live with. So it's not the fear itself that really is the problem. It's how we relate to it, how we're conditioned to relate to it, how we related to it from the earliest periods in our life, and how we relate to it today. So fear is, it's something very positive unless we allow the mind and emotions to get involved and we create a monster. So I always tell people that fear is not a negative thing. And in many ways, it's a very healthy thing. What's unhealthy is taking this little speck of fear, this tinge of fear in oneself, and creating a nightmare out of it. And that has really just falls back on the way we've been conditioned to approach fear since the earliest periods of our life. We're really trained by our parents, our friends, our teachers, our schools, and we're conditioned to make fear into a monster instead of listening to that buoy and allowing it to remind us that we have to be more conscious in a situation. Fear also is of the unknown, and what is the ultimate fear? It's the fear of dying. And that really drips or merges with everything else that we fear. The fear of relationships, the fear of money, the fear of anything that is unknown to us, that doesn't quite fit into our well-conceived little world that we live in. We have to step out of our box in this fear. And it's not, and it's not really the fear of getting involved in a relationship with somebody. It's ultimately the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of dying, the fear of losing control over this little world that we control. All this stuff, builds fear inside people. And none of it's real. All of it is a way of keeping ourselves from growing, keeping ourselves from succeeding in life, keeping ourselves from stepping out of this little box that we live in and entering a world of real creativity, which always exists in the unknown. And it also plays a role in having a spiritual life, because when you want a spiritual life, you are dealing ultimately with the unknown. It's really building a system that unifies life and death, that reveals to us that there's no separation between the known and the unknown. It's all one. And the only separation exists in the mind and the emotions that keep us from embracing the unknown. And of course, I've discovered in my own that all creative energy, everything that's extraordinary in life comes from the unknown. And what we know in life is about 5% of our consciousness, of what the possibilities are to open to embrace, to use, to grow, to expand ourselves as human beings. And then there's that wall of fear, you know. And like Eliot, TSL, do I dare? And indeed, there will be time to wonder, do I dare and do I dare? You know, I mean, this is the consciousness that permeates almost all human beings. Do I dare take a step into the unknown? You know, it's so, you know, it's so engrossed in people's consciousness that they build enormous fear. Money is one of these things that paralyzes people. There's so much fear. You know, will I wind up living on the street? Will I ever succeed in life? Will I have? And all of us have lived long enough to have succeeded in life. We were alive, you know? That in itself is a success, that we've lived this long and we are, you know, open to learning new things in life. I hope this is clear because I don't know how to make it any clearer, you know? And I think that what I'm talking about is so ingrained in the consciousness of most people, you know, and religions play on that fear, you know, there's only one way to God, there's only one path, there's only this, there's only that. If you step out of line, you're going to roast in hell, you're going to, you know, I mean, all this stuff that's drilled into people from the day they're born, it's like madness, you know? And all it does is control people. It gives people power over other people to control them. So I don't know. I mean, I arrived at a place and I realized that God is manifested in every single thing that exists on this planet is a manifestation of God's energy. And, you know, if there's fear, yeah, there's some crazy people that you encounter, and this is all right. But don't let the mind and the emotions get involved because it'll create out of that fear a monster. A monster. It'll paralyze you. Paralyze. When I was younger, it used to paralyze me. I mean, there's a great story. There's a wonderful student of mine who lives in Brazil, and Brazil can be a fairly, especially in the big cities, it can be a fairly dangerous place. There's burglaries all the time, and people get kidnapped, and all kinds of stuff like that goes on. So she's driving. This is a great story. She's driving her car, you know, on some street in Sao Paulo, stops for a light, and some kid comes to her window, pulls out a gun, points it at her, and says, "Give me all your money." You know, so she didn't have a lot of money on her. She had, I don't know, maybe 50 reais, 30 reais, something negligible. And she gave him the money. And he said to her, "If you don't give me more money, I'm going to kill you." So she looked at this kid and she took her hand, put it on his cheek, just put it on his cheek. Young kid, he was like 13, 14 years old, and said, "Why are you going to do that, Karida?" You know, the kid looked at her and he just broke out in tears, sat down and told her his life story, gave her back the money. She returned it to him and said, no, you keep this money. It's an extraordinary story. And, you know, it's something where if you don't live in fear, there's a way to touch anybody, anybody. Does anyone else have a question you would like to ask?
Stuart?
Yes, Larry.
Can you talk about how living in the consciousness that we know that our actions impact the collective, like the ripple effect, and that the way we live has a much greater impact on what we see in the world than we know?
Well, look, Larry, it's why I keep telling people they have to develop a chakra system that can keep their hearts open. So that the way that they impact the world is through love, is through, being conscious of the sufferings of other human beings. It's through all of this, instead of interacting with it through fear. It's, why are you going to do that, Karina? That was this woman interacting with life, and, it brought tears to the eyes of the person she touched. I mean, it's the exact same answer. But in order to do this, I mean, this person had been a student of mine for, I don't know, 25 years, 20 years, maybe more. I don't know, a long time. She's like my sister, very, very dear person in my life. And we need to build a system inside that enables us to,
it's 2:00.
Interact with life. Why are you going to do that, Karina? Why are you going to hurt me? Why? Why? And to do it with love, to do it with that, consciousness that the suffering is so deep in other people, and that's why they do what they do. That's why they pull out guns and try to kill people and hurt people, because the pain is so deep and so, I mean, I don't know if you ever read the book Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, about Raskolnikov, who was this brilliant guy living in a garret, alone in the world. And the only way he knew how to touch life was by killing that old woman. I mean, that's really what it came down to. It was his only means of touching life, striking out at life. And then after that action, the punishment was his consciousness and the meeting of that woman and the love that's, I mean, that's really what goes on in people. So our work really is to build an inner life that is strong enough so that when that ripple effect, as you call it, touches life, it's with kindness, it's with goodness, it's with love. It's also with consciousness and intelligence, and it's not naivety, and it's a kind of innocence that has real strength behind it, that can deal with all the bullshit that goes on in this world. But our job is to build that kind of inner life that enables us to live that way. And then we have worked out our karma. We have learned what we have to learn on the earth. And really, it's the foundation for all enlightenment. You don't have to come back here. We've learned what it means to transform suffering into love. And I think that's the key to all of this. And then the ripple effect is that, look, what I'm trying to do here is touching people in New York, in Israel, in Brazil, and Albania. I mean, it's ridiculous, That's the ripple effect of these meditation classes. In Norway, Estonia, Montenegro, I mean, it's unbelievable how that ripple effect can touch people. But, this is years of working on myself, building a system inside that is strong enough to do what I'm talking about. I mean, I couldn't do this 25 years ago. My only energy, or 30, more than that, was anger at the world, at this horrible place I was living in, rebellion, and that all got transformed. But that's the work. You understand? I can't emphasize it enough. It's the work, inner work that transforms human beings into children of God, conscious children of God. We're all children of God, but conscious children of God. And then the ripple effect is love. It's gratitude. But if people don't do that kind of inner work, whether it's through what I teach or through some religion or some other teachers, they have to do the inner work to build that kind of life. In other words, the word spiritual life is just a bunch of nonsense, you know? It's just words. It's the Tower of Babel, you know? It's just a lot of words in a lot of different languages that mean nothing. Does anyone else have a question I would like to ask? Okay, if there are no more questions, again, God bless you all. Thank you. And I'm telling you, these classes are kind of not even a minor miracle, a major miracle. They draw out the most extraordinary stuff, you know, and I'm hoping that you all absorb it and benefit from it. I know I certainly am. And God bless you all for being here and being part of this. You know, there'll be another class on Thursday. I'm hoping to see everybody there. Take it home with you, you know, let it be part of your life. Bless you all. Thank you. See you on Thursday.
Thank you.